Hey everyone, Crash here, this is RTA Motorsports. Now, Pimax was kind enough to send us a VR headset for review. Let's see if it actually lives up to the hype. Now, this is the Pimax Crystal Light. Here we go. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of background as far as RTA Motorsports and VR, I've been reviewing VR headsets since the Oculus DK2 days, back when they were only a developer kit, and we had the Razer OS VR. I know a lot of you already know that, but I just want to put that out there, especially if you're newer to this channel. But as far as sim racing, we've been looking at VR headsets since the very beginning, and these are some headsets here I'm going to be making comparisons to, probably in this video, as well as future videos, as well as the MetaQuest 3. Of course, I have to make comparisons to that because that is a immensely popular headset that's inside-out tracked, an all-in-one headset. And honestly, one of my favorite headsets that is out there, although spec-wise, it's probably nowhere near the highest, especially with some of the other headsets that are out there now. But this is the HP Reverb G2. I know back in its day with the Windows Mixed Reality platform for inside-out tracking, this was a lot of our favorite headset, especially for any sort of simulation. So sim flight, sim racing, things like that. This was known as one of the most clearest headsets that were out there. Really, the screens and the lenses, it was only a Fresnel lens, but really just for clarity and lightweight sort of design and just how it functioned, it was really one of the better headsets that were out there. And it was one of the ones I used to recommend all the time. And then this here is really my first and only time I really experienced Pimax. Now, this is the Pimax 5K Plus. This is one of their first headsets that was ever released. It's one of the really large FOV headsets. I think this was around the time that they were advertising 200 degrees of FOV. And to be honest with you, when you really experience one of these headsets, it is a unique experience. Now, why would anyone want a larger FOV going into sim racing? We'll go into that quite a bit more detail later on, but really when you have a larger FOV, you really get a better sense of speed. And that's why I wanted to try that headset, is to really kind of get a sense for, trees whipping by, being able to see in my peripheral vision, both doors, or being able to just glance over at a mirror. It felt a lot more natural, but it did have a lot of shortcomings, especially for one of the first headsets that really Pimax created. It was an amazing technological marvel. But, since then, they have made a lot of changes. They have come a long way, and I'm very excited to take a look at this Pimax. Before we jump in the box, let's go over some of the specs and see how it compares to those other headsets we just spoke about. So let's pull it up here. I'm not a robot. I can't remember everything. So we're going to be just comparing it again to the MetaQuest 3, the HP Reverb G2, and the Pimax 5K Plus that we just put down, that giant headset. But first, let's go into, we'll go into the optic design. So the MetaQuest 3 famously uses their pancake lenses. Honestly, one of my favorite lenses out there. It was one of the first times I've experienced a lens of a different kind back from the Fresnel days. So every headset that I have here, especially the older ones, they all use some sort of Fresnel lens, and that is the lenses that you would experience or see that would have ridges. And in that design, you would normally get God rays, and there would be other sort of things that you would make concessions for when you would talk about any of those lenses. But that was how we actually experienced VR back then, with that lens design. And there was a lot of shortcomings, but a lot of brands out there, like the HP brand, when they created the HP Reverb G2, did a really good job with their Fresnel lenses, although they still weren't perfect. But the Oculus, or I keep wanting to say Oculus, MetaQuest 3 has its pancake lenses, and some people don't like them, but to be honest with you, I absolutely love them. Of course, HP Reverb G2, we just said it, they do have the Fresnel lens. We'll look at the Pimax 5K Plus, also a Fresnel lens, but a very unique Fresnel lens. Let me actually show you the monster lenses that are on this. Look at that. Absolutely insane. But you can kind of see that weird glaring effect and that is because of the ridges of that Fresnel lens. This uses glass aspheric lenses. So very interesting design. It's going to be the first time I'm using a new technology of lens. And I'm very excited to see how they work. From some of the other sources that I know that actually have tried this headset, supposedly God rays are a completely thing of the past, and clarity is amazing. But I'm going to try it myself and see how it works with my eyes and see what that looks like. So the IPD range. So for the Meta Quest 3, we're looking at 58 to 71 millimeters. For the HP Reverb G2, 60 to 68 millimeters. For the Pimax Crystal Light, 58 to 72 millimeters. So just a little bit more than the Meta Quest 3. And then for the 5K Plus, the Pimax 5K Plus, 60 to 72. Display type. So it uses two QLED binocular screens with local dimming models also available. As far as all the other headsets, they use some sort of LCD screen, whereas the Pimax 5K Plus used CLPL binocular screens. All right, so let's jump into the resolution real quick. So the Meta Quest 3 is 2064 by 2208 per eye. The HP Reverb G2 is 2160 by 2160 per eye. The Pimax 5K Plus, 2560 by 1440 per eye. Again, that's attributing to that really, really large, wide FOV. And the Pimax Crystal Light is 2880 by 2880 per eye. So it's quite a bit higher than all the other headsets. Let's talk about refresh rate. Again, back to that Meta Quest 3. It's capable of 120 hertz. To be honest with you, in reality, most of the time I used 90 hertz whenever I was in the rig. The HP Reverb G2, not a fault of this headset. Back then, most of the headsets were 90 hertz. And that was no different for the HP Reverb G2, also 90 hertz. The Pimax 5K Plus was capable of 144 hertz. To be honest with you, though, back when I was using that headset, I don't know if the software has changed since then, but when you selected 144 hertz, it would normally crop the image way in, so that way you lost a lot of your FOV. It would also dim the backlight quite a bit. So to be honest with you, it was capable of doing it, but I've never really ran it that high. I would normally also leave it at 90 for the best experience for the old 5K Plus. And then the Pimax Crystal Light is capable of 90, 72, 60, or up to 120 hertz. So you can adjust it based on what you need. So let's go down and let's look at the visible FOV, because you know the rendered FOV, sometimes the numbers were not reported on some of the headsets, or if they were reported, I was able to find it. It being binocular kind of changed some things in some of the figures. So let's go to visible FOV and we'll just report out the horizontal and vertical. That's pretty much what I was able to find for most of these headsets. So the Meta Quest 3 has a 103.8 degree horizontal with a 96.4 vertical FOV as far as visible. The HP Reverb G2 was 98 degrees horizontal, 90 degrees vertical. The Pimax 5K Plus was 150 degrees horizontal, 103 degrees vertical. And to be honest with you, I believe every one of those degrees, it's again a very unique experience. Although by today's standards, I'm sure the modern day headsets just look a ton better. And then the Pimax Crystal Light, 115 degrees horizontal and 105 degrees vertical. So honestly, quite a bit higher than the other standard headsets that are out there. So we're going to be able to see quite a bit more in this headset here. Let's go down to peak pixel density or average pixel density. To be honest with you, I couldn't find all the information on all the headsets here, specifically the 5K Plus and the HP Reverb G2. So we'll just talk about those a little bit. But the peak pixel density for the Meta Quest 3 and the Pimax Crystal Light are quite a bit different. So peak pixel density on the Meta Quest 3 is 25. And that's really honestly not too bad, whereas the Pimax Crystal Light is 35. So quite a few more pixels kind of crammed into one small area. But the average pixel density, if you want to talk about horizontal and vertical, when you compare the Meta Quest 3 versus the HP Reverb G2, Meta Quest 3 is about 22 ppd horizontal, 21 ppd vertical, where the HP Reverb G2 was about 23.5 horizontal and 23.7 vertical. And that's really kind of what attributed to that clarity, specifically like in sim racing, when you're looking at your gauges, you want to be able to read those small numbers. The HP Reverb G2 did a great job there, but you can see the peak pixel density on the Pimax Crystal Light is 35. So very excited to like get in it and sort of like, start looking at things, especially off in the distance brake markers. You really want that high pixel density. So that way you can get that render resolution to kind of, be able to resolve some of those numbers at distance. Let's also go into some of the weight because that's important, especially if you're in a longer race session. You don't want something huge and heavy really weighing down your head. To be honest with you, we'll go into the weights, but it's really going to be also subjective with its headband and how it actually disperses that weight. Because I've used some headsets that were supposedly pretty light with a very ineffective head strap, and when you have that weight just like pulling down on the front of your face, it really can make it feel heavier than it really is. But let's go into some of this here. So the MetaQuest 3 with a battery in it, 515 grams with the head strap. The HP Reverb G2, 727 grams with the head strap. The Pimax 5K Plus, a giant behemoth of a headset, 514 grams. I do have a aftermarket valve index head strap on it that does increase that weight a little bit. The Pimax Crystal Light, 815 grams with the head strap. So it'll be interesting to see how that feels, especially in the longer races, whether or not we start getting some fatigue or, maybe a headache or anything like that. These are things that can happen. Or if the head strap is a really good design, it may disperse that weight around. It may not be that noticeable. So we'll definitely check that out, especially on the long-term reviews. All right, so that's the end of the specs as far as how the Pimax Crystal Light compares to some of the other headsets. Let's jump inside the box and see what it looks like. All right, so let's take a look at this box real quick. And as we go to do that, I'm going to turn on the camera view so that way you could all kind of see the box in real time as we're going through this. So you can see right now a common theme, especially with the newer VR headsets that I was reviewing, the boxes are a lot more compact and they're a lot smaller than they used to be back in the original Index days. Or, back when the 5K Plus first came out, you would get multiple boxes or a giant box that would be like a suitcase. Those are really a thing of the past, which in one sense, I'm a little bit sad to see because it shows like how long I've been in VR. But another hand, it's kind of refreshing to see that they're able to get these headsets a lot more compact and down to just a simple box like this, where hopefully, we could start picking them up at stores like we can the MetaQuest 3. So you can see on the side here, it does have a label that shows where the headset's actually produced. So it says it's produced in Poland, gives an address, a city, postal code, but also says Pimax Crystal Light QLED, and kind of the name of the company, the email for support, things like that. It does have the Pimax logo ghosted into the front there. And yeah, very simple and straightforward box. So let's jump in and let's see what we find. All right, so very easy and quick presentation here. Not really too much to kind of look at. Really, the box is, again, a very simple box. It is encased in foam. So you can easily see that the headset is not going to get damaged in shipping, which used to happen in a lot of the old original VR headsets, especially when the companies were just starting out. Nowadays, I guess that's going to be a thing of the past too, which is very nice to see, especially when you're spending this kind of money on a VR headset. You're going to want to make sure that it's encapsulated correctly, and this foam is really going to make sure that that headset is safe. It's in there pretty tight too. So let's take a look at some of the controllers first before we take the VR headset out. I'm very curious about that head strap. It looks really robust. So these are the controllers here, and they do sort of look like, dare I say, like Meta or old school Oculus controllers in a way. So they do have the button on the side here. It's all right. There is a Pimax logo. I'm going to bring it up to this camera here so that way you could all see it. You do have your A and B button as well as your menu button. And there's a Pimax logo button that is not present on any of the Oculus Quest controllers there. That is a new button there. But as far as the design with the Halo, it is kind of similar. The trigger does feel good. The grip button feels a little bit hollow, but honestly, not too bad. Not too bad at all. Let's take a look at the other one here. So again, we do have, it's a very similar design, just a mirror image of the other controller there. So you do have like a menu button on the other side. You do have that Pimax logo right here on that button there. Oh, I guess I just turned it on. You can see a little indicator light there, as well as they both have, so they both have analog sticks. I guess that Pimax button is how you maybe initiate pairing mode, because I just hit that on the other one as well. The other one started vibrating. A little indicator light turned on as well there on the top. It's green currently, and I'm sure that has to do with battery. And they are rechargeable. Okay, so back in the day of the controllers, and I'm thinking that these kind of look similar to the Oculus controllers. Those you have to put batteries in. These are rechargeable, and they do have a USB-C port on the bottom there, which is really nice to see. So, you know, really, I mean, changing batteries out and buying batteries, it's a lot of those controllers, they last for a really long time on battery charges. And, you know, buying batteries is really not that big of a deal. But sometimes when you really want to use the headset, you haven't used it for a little while, you don't have any other batteries, and the controller's dead, not having the ability to recharge them is kind of an inconvenience. So having rechargeable controllers is actually really nice to see. Very happy to see that. Let's go into some of these packages that are here. See what this one is. It feels like it's kind of cabling. There we go. You can see this is the first time I'm kind of going through it. Okay, so I'm guessing these are the recharging cables. So just normal USB-A to USB-C cables for recharging the controllers. We'll put those on the side over here. See what these are. Not really sure what that is. Sounds like some hardware. Maybe it's the actual plugs. I don't know. Let's see. Oh, it's a bunch of little stuff. Okay, so we got different style plug adapters. So I guess there are going to be some plugs in here somewhere. And these look like for multiple different countries, different plug adapters to go on. So that way you can actually charge your stuff. Cool. Maybe to charge, or maybe this headset's powered. I'm thinking actually this is probably to the power supply for the headset. We'll find out together. Got some books on the side here. So we got the Pimax Crystal Light manual, quick start guide, information to their Discord support group, little Pimax card there. That's pretty nice. It's pretty cool that they have a Discord support group, which I actually joined, and they're very responsive on there, which is nice to see. Well, let's take this headset out. I'm super excited about this head strap design. It looks really nice. So we got a cable running under the back. Oh, okay. Right. So we have a Pimax box in the bottom here holding the cables. Let's actually put this headset back down. Let's see what's in here. See if there's maybe a power supply in here. Yep. There we go. There's a power supply. Almost certain that's what this is. Yes. Okay. So we got the power supply, and it's a universal power supply. Just take your country's plug, pop it in there. It's got a release button here to actually slide it back out. We'll leave that in place. So this is a powered headset. Important to note. You have the back side of the cable here. They also included little microfiber, so that way you can clean your lenses. We'll take a look at the cable ends, because I'm pretty sure this is going to be like DisplayPort. I'd be surprised if it's USB, to be honest with you. Let's see. So USB 3.0 right there. And DisplayPort. Okay. So we do have a DisplayPort. So I'll just figure out one of these monitors that we're going to disconnect from our PC, and we'll get this in place. All right. Cover that back up. Let's finally take a look at this headset. Very excited, especially with this head strap design. It looks really robust. It looks really nice. It really does. So even though this is a heavier headset, I'm sure it's really going to carry that weight real well. But yeah, I love the sort of mech design of Pimax. I know a lot of people, they sort of give Pimax a hard time with their design, but I was a huge anime fan growing up. And to me, this looks every bit of anime as possible. But I do got to say, just holding the headset in my hand, it does, it's a plastic design. It doesn't really have that rubber matte finish on it that some of the other older Pimax headsets have, but it feels like a nice, robust, premium headset. It doesn't feel cheaply made at all. It has a beautiful design to it. I love that they're maintaining that V logo. They're holding fast to it. Kind of curious to see if it lights up or not. Not sure if the crystal light will light up, and really it's not overly important, especially for, you know, the user that's in the headset itself. But I did kind of like how their Pimax 5K Plus, the V would light up, but not overly important, to be honest with you. And you do see the cameras here. There are 4 cameras. So we got 2 in the bottom and 2 in the top corners. So 4 cameras for tracking. So this is an inside-out tracked headset. We no longer need the lighthouses, but apparently there is an upgraded faceplate or an optional faceplate. I shouldn't say upgraded, just an optional faceplate if you want to use the base stations, like the Steam VR base stations. There is another faceplate you could either pop in on this one, or I'm kind of curious if that's only for the Ultra. A little piece of foam just came off there. But yeah, I'll look into it and kind of see exactly what you can do as far as faceplates go. But we do have some buttons here in the corner. It's a really beautiful headset. I love this head strap design. It looks really robust. Now, I do know they do sell upgraded headphones. I think it's called like the DMASS or DMAS. I'm not really sure, but there are upgraded headphones modules you can buy for this. These are the speakers that are going to kind of blow the sound over your ears, kind of like what the MetaQuest 3 does in a way. Similar technology to that, but not really the same implementation. This is completely their own design. So I'll be kind of curious to see how these sound. And then on the bottom here, we do have, I believe it's the bottom, we do have the microphone ports. So these are 2 microphone in ports. Really shouldn't say in ports. You're not going to plug anything into them, but 2 microphone array, I should say, that are on the bottom there. So that way, you know, it could pick up what you're saying. Oh, that fabric actually feels really good. It's kind of like a very sort of microfiber fabric. You can kind of see that there. It actually looks really nice. And on the back side, it does have like a foam / rubberized material on the back. And that's probably really going to attribute to some better grip on the back of your head. So that way the headset doesn't spin on the front of your head, but on your face, you got the nice microfiber material. Big old lenses. They're not as big as like the old Pimax 5K Plus. And we'll bring that 5K Plus next to it so that way you can kind of see what I'm talking about. See the 5K Plus versus this headset here. I mean, the lenses on the 5K Plus are just insane. That's a whole different experience right there. But these lenses are gorgeous. And to be honest with you, they're aspheric glass lenses. They look gorgeous. Not a ridge in sight. I can't wait to turn them on and really see what that's like. There is a sensor here on the bottom in the middle. I'll bring that up so that way you can see. And this is probably going to be to sense whether or not you are wearing the headset or not. We do have the rubber flaps here to kind of block out any sort of ambient light through your nose bridge. And they're very thin, so that way you don't really feel the pressure on your nose, which is really nice too. There's a scroll wheel up here. This corner, let me try to get that. There. Yeah, there you go. You can see it. And that is probably how you adjust the IPD. The cabling is like running right through there and just obstructing my fingers. But once I actually got my hands on it and moved that cable out of the way, it's a lot easier to sort of get in and do it. So, all right, the next video here, we're going to throw this headset on, power it on, and really just give you my first impressions. I'm really excited to try this headset and feel how it feels. And oh, this is gonna be nice. This is gonna be nice. All right, everyone. See you in the next one. I'm Crash. This is RTA Motorsports. Stay tuned.